like as a martyr, I think I'm doing the highest service, but it's not. Martyrdom isn't a form of love. That's what I've realized. It is self-depletion. So you can give to others, but when you realize that you're exhausting your own energy reserves by doing it, you eventually will become resentful because you'll never be getting enough back.
Welcome to the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I'm dedicated to helping you take control of your life. Together, we'll explore practical tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories to help you overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. Making small changes is possible and can lead to big results. Are you ready? Let's go do this. All right. Well, Rebecca, I can't wait for our conversation. So, everybody, welcome to Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. And I have with me today, Rebecca Paris. So I want to take a minute to introduce her to you guys. She has a fascinating background spanning the worlds of advertising, art, and she had a profound spiritual awakening. She's also a dedicated spiritual and Gene Keys guide, which I'm very excited to learn about because I've never heard of that before. And she's founder of raisingthevibe.org. And she and I are also going to be diving into what it means to step out of the ego, embody our divine selves, and unlock the potential within. So all those things I'm also interested in. So Rebecca, welcome to the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. So why don't you give a little bit of background about yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Had a pretty ordinary childhood, grew up in a small town in Illinois, ended up going to the University of Virginia, getting a BS in marketing and management, moved to Atlanta, got married, had kids, did my advertising career, ended up being VP of marketing for United Way. So just really the traditional path. I really didn't have any profound spiritual, religious awakenings at that point, just kind of doing what, people are supposed to do here in the Matrix. And then when my son went to kindergarten, my time freed up and I just really started sketching and drawing. I used to do that a little bit in high school and drew his face. And then I'm like, wow, I didn't really know I could do this. Ended up taking some art lessons and just like 6 of them, learning how to mix oils, and ended up being mainly self-taught, albeit those lessons, became a portrait artist. So I painted children's portraits for 10 to 15 years. That was, a big joy for me to kind of switch gears to do that while the kids were growing up. In addition, I just felt like I run, every volunteer organization. I'd get involved, I'd run it the next year. And it just had a lot of that, external leadership energy kind of going into my life. I guess the biggest teachers and the reason why I'm on this path right now are my children. They're, I guess you'd call neurodiverse, super sensitive. And when, I was trying to do the traditional things, send them to private school or do the thing and realized that they really weren't fitting into like the school system. And it was very difficult, diagnosed with ADHD. We went down that whole medication path. And it was just a huge challenge. So that kind of woke me up to some level of kind of what's going on and some of the problems in this reality here and not being very supportive of the individual and the uniqueness that each soul brings into the world. And in 2017, after some issues with the children, I was talking to my daughter on the phone. She was away at college and she was explaining this situation that was really negative, but what she said, I had an awakening because I knew what she told me couldn't be a coincidence. There was 2 things that came together that it wouldn't happen in the known world that I was aware of using my 5 senses in the world. I just had this, I was on a walk with my dog and I just had this awakening going, there must be something more to this world than I have been aware of. And I really I reasoned that, well, if I can't, a dog can hear a whistle. And even though I can't, there must be some sort of frequencies and spectrum of even color, light, sound that the human can't perceive. And why would I base all of my judgments on just these 5 senses when I believe there's more out there? And so it opened up an awakening to be, well, let me figure this out. So I asked myself two questions. One, somehow it just popped in. I was open to it. And it was like, how does energy between people play out in the world? And what do all religions throughout time and culture have in common? So I went on a deep
Wow.
dive from there.
Two big questions. They are
Mm-hmm.
the energy between people, and then what is a commonality between all the major religions out there? That there are some two very profound deep questions. So
They are. I'm like, wow.
and you know, when you realize, and the other thing you said that was interesting was that you were talking about the five senses and how just the thought of dogs can hear something on a level that we can't. That question alone prompts that maybe the five senses, like there's more to it, like you said. And so, all right, I'll let you continue. I think it's going to be a very fascinating path here that we go down.
So I'm so glad that I listened, because I know many people that I've run into on the spiritual path have had to deal with very big dark nights of the soul. A lot of times health issues have come in, or near-death experiences or other tragedies have come in to really wake them up, to get them on the spiritual path. And that's very common. I'm so thankful that, even though I had the challenges with the children, but I was listening to the whispers instead of the universal 2x4s having to slap me, to wake me up. So that's just a call to all the listeners. So if you're getting those whispers, listen now. Don't have to wait for your higher self to really kick you. But so I started just really being open to the signs. And one of the first signs I saw was a brochure in the middle of the sidewalk when I was out walking my dog. I decided to go a different way. And then there was this brochure smack in the middle that said it had to do with the mind-body connection. I'm like, okay. And I knew right away it was a sign. I picked up the brochure, and then I just started, talking to all my friends who are religious or spiritual, just trying to get an understanding of their perspective. And then went on a deep reading path, because I was very interested in the intersection between science and spirituality. And so the book, Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton came in, as well as Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins. So, and the Hawkins book really explains consciousness. I hadn't even thought about what is consciousness, what's a level of consciousness, and is this, and I had no idea that really makes up the reality that we all experience here. So after that, just kind of did a deep dive into that, and ended up founding Raising the Vibe, which started as a spiritual book club.
Aha. All right. We'll talk more about Raising the Vibe then, and what that is, why you chose the name, and who it's for.
Perfect. So again, I was listening, and it's about listening to the universe. And sometimes those whispers come in the voice of other people. Mm-hmm. And I had 3 friends ask me, or say, well, why don't you, because I was involved with a regular book club for 20 years. I'm a really avid reader. And 3 different friends within probably 2 or 3 weeks of each other said, well, why don't you start a spiritual book club? I'm like, okay, I hear you. I will start a spiritual book club. We got the group together, and one of the people in the group said, we should call it Raising the Vibe. I'm like, perfect. So let's call this book club Raising the Vibe. And we just started gathering and reading books like the Power versus Force, and just to really as a reflection journey for the people who were willing to step outside of the known reality to really learn more, the seekers, in my friend group. So a year after that, I also listened to the voice that said, why don't you create a nonprofit? And it was really more about gatherings in Atlanta, and had people talking about human design, a medical doctor who was really stepping out to be more of a soul doctor, who had these, supernatural experiences, who's written books, and just had several speakers come in, and really, we discussed what they would say. And then, so that went on until COVID hit. And I ended up, deciding that I needed to relocate from Atlanta. I left my marriage of 27 years with that conscious uncoupling, because I felt like I no longer fit in the world that I had created for myself, because I was no longer the same person.
And I've had that experience. you just described me.
Okay. Yeah. So Raising the Vibe, I end up turning because I was really interested in giving, because I'm such a big reader and I have all these resources. I was really interested in creating a platform that really helped people with all the resources that they could need, whether it's, all the ways to find your unique imprint, like the Akashic Record, Human Design, Gene Keys, the Enneagram, all the energy holistic modalities to help heal yourself. Just listed them. When I came into contact with them, I just put a definition up there just so people understood, what's out there, as well as I've recently revised it to, embody your true self, which is really how to, integrate all of your shadows so you can really bring in the light of who you truly are and really the embodiment of it. So raisingthevibe.org is out there I've left it as a service to humanity outside of my personal work that I'm doing. Just for anybody who finds it online and feels resonant with trying to explore the deeper meaning in life and who's wanting to step into more sovereignty.
You mentioned the gene keys. So for listeners who are new to that, hearing that for the first time, can you briefly explain what they are and how understanding their unique blueprint can unlock their their genius? I am having a tough time speaking today. I don't know what it is, you guys, but it's just not coming out of my mouth. So anyway, talk a little bit about the gene keys.
Sure. Well, I started out with human design, and many people on the path have heard of human design. So I started
I've
there.
done that as well. I have my own as well. Yeah, it's fascinating. It's
Yeah.
a fascinating study.
It is.
Design. Yes. So you can talk about that too, but it's fascinating.
Well, and that really helped me be able to awaken and do the things, because I found that early on in the path. So I was, when I found my human design, and I realized that I was an ego, anybody who's out there who's done human design, I was an ego authority manifester. And manifestors make up 7% of the population or something like that. And then ego authority is like less than 1% of the population. And the ego authority is really about the correct use of power. And it was just like, whoa, there is something here that I need to be aware of. And then the gene keys landed on my plate probably 6 months later. A friend of mine was into it. So Richard Rudd is the founder of the Gene Keys. He was a human design student and studied with the founder of human design for about 7 years. He's even written human design books. And then he had his own transmission come in with like the 3 days of just being in the other, the ether, and just really downloading what I call is a teaching that would stand on the shoulders of human design. Using the I Ching, which is the 64 archetypes like human design does. And just where the plate, and astrology, he added on words, and he added finding your genius through your incarnation cross, as well as adding in the biology, the codons and the DNA, our DNA, and, bringing the physical science to that teaching. So the Gene Keys, you put in, you can find it on your own with genekeys.com, and you can find your free profile. So anybody's interested, go to genekeys.com, GENEKEYS, search free profile, put your birth information in there, your time, and you can see your profile. And the 4 outer spheres are like in human design, they call it the incarnation cross. But you look at your words describing your life's work, your evolution, your radiance, what keeps you healthy, and your purpose, which is hidden underneath once you kind of do all the work. So, and he puts it into 3 words, which really describe the frequencies that each of your unique keys describe. So, for example, my life's work is what I'm here to do in the outer world is Gene Key number 2, and it's dislocation to orientation to unity. And it is the prime feminine key. So I am here to and if you're familiar with the I Ching, it's the the hexagram, every line is broken, which is the prime feminine. And then it's always paired with the opposite on the I Ching. So my evolution here in this lifetime is the prime masculine key. So it goes from entropy to beauty. And it's just, so I'm working on balance, through my life, I'm working on balancing the masculine and the feminine. So that's my particular path. And then I cross over. And once you kind of, break through, you can get to more of the feminine side, which is your radiance. My radiance is at the highest level is empathy. And my biggest challenge with that is because I am an empath, taking on other people's pain has been the biggest challenge I have. So I was having a hard time being a compassionate witness, especially to my adult children, because I would take on their pain and I would feel it and I just would want to shut down and get angry and try to fix them versus being able to hold space. And I'm hoping I'm still working on that and getting better at it.
What are you doing to work on that? Because those who are highly empathetic, like what you just described has been my experience as well. I would consider myself an empath as well. And I can feel other people's pain. Real weird story. Like when my kids broke their fingers or they had a broken bone or somewhere, like I could actually feel it in my body or things like that. Like that is that's considered an empath, where you're taking on other people's feeling and pain. That's a real thing. I didn't know for the longest time that I thought that was unusual. I thought there was something wrong with me. But then I came to realize that there are other people out there like that. How it was really nice to hear, because you think you're going nuts, that you're taking on other people's empathy and other people's pain like that. So what did you learn? What have you learned out of those experiences? And what have you done to help yourself move from being an empath to just being an observer in somebody else's life rather than trying to fix it? Because I can also relate to the fixing end. You want to fix everybody's problems, because you can feel their pain. You don't want them to have that anymore. And you go into that, and you think you're helping.
Right.
But you're not. Yeah. Thoughts?
Wow. Yeah, it is. I'm still working on it. And I feel like I've made big strides actually within the last 2 weeks almost, but part of the issue is, especially with our children, we're deeply connected to them. And the two things that I really needed to get in balance for me to be able to not take on their stuff was to get out of being the rescuer. And so when you're the rescuer, you make the other person the victim. I don't know if you've heard about the triangle: the rescuer, the victim, and the perpetrator.
Okay, yeah, I have, but unpack that a little bit. Feel free to talk
so
more.
That's just and again, part of my work is really talking about the blended reality, the organic matrix, which is the true creation reality, and there's a false matrix that we're living in here. Most of us are still trying to get out of the 3D false matrix, which has a lot of negativity and a lot of programs. So the false matrix has this setup where, you take on one of these roles, either rescuer, victim, or perpetrator. And a lot of times you can switch into be one or the other. My consciousness came in as a rescuer. And so I would be constantly trying to rescue. And for example, my daughter would more like take the victim role. And so we had this pattern, and so I had codependency with my children.
Wow.
And a lot of times codependency hit because you feel unworthy, or you don't feel, you don't love yourself enough. So you put all of your energies onto someone else. And it's that external love. And until you start loving yourself and doing everything, it's not just self-care, but it's really self-love. That's when you can start unpacking and unwinding those relationships where you're overdoing it. And I was trying to control their lives. I have control in my gene keys as my attraction field. So I had to unwind thinking that I can control and that of other people's lives. So really getting out of codependency was the first thing. The second thing is I needed to step out of martyrdom, which is very much tied to this codependent relationship I had. Like as a martyr, I think I'm doing the highest service, but it's not. Martyrdom isn't a form of love. That's what I've realized. It is self-depletion. So you can give to others, but when you realize that you're exhausting your own energy reserves by doing it, you eventually will become resentful because you'll never be getting enough back. You expend yourself, and then you expect, well, I've given all this, they should really appreciate me. And then they ultimately will never appreciate you enough because you've just given yourself away. And then the key is to not give yourself away, is to honor yourself first, do everything you can to be in your own power, your own, honoring. And then when it overflows, you can support them, but you can't, it doesn't help to just give your energy away because it doesn't allow them to walk their own path. So I was trying to clear all the boulders on my children's path before they happened. And then they weren't allowed to figure it out themselves and get their own wings strong enough as the caterpillar to become the butterfly to break out of the chrysalis.
Yeah.
So it was a lot. And I've spent 5 years unwinding this. It's
Oh,
still
wow.
happening for me to unwind so much of me protecting them, thinking I'm doing the right thing, where I've just sheltered them and they've become so dependent on me. I'm still now having to say, well, what do you think? I mean, it's just
Wow. Yes, as parents, I mean, I have 3 kids myself. They're all in their mid-20s, 30s, the oldest. And yeah, I mean, as a parent, you think you're helping when you're trying to mitigate problems that might occur rather than letting the kids do it themselves. This concept of martyrdom that you mentioned, this is pretty fascinating here that you said, like you're dying, you think you're dying to somebody else and you think that you're really helping them. You said what you did for yourself was you had to honor yourself first. Practically, what did that look like for you when you realized that this was happening? What does honoring yourself look like for you?
Yeah, well, it has everything to do with boundaries.
Mm,
And Brene Brown is such a great teacher of this. I don't know if you know Brene Brown's work.
yeah.
So I've read a lot of her stuff, but it's just really saying, to yourself, because I constantly would answer the phone, even if I'm in the middle of something. So first of all, it's not, until they get to adulthood, you still got to do what you got to do. After adulthood, and then they're living on their own, then you can take some space and not always answer the phone, and then I know they'll call back or they'll text if there's an emergency. So honoring my time and then just kind of asking myself, is this the best thing I can do for self-love right now by getting on the phone or doing that? So that's one thing. But really the way to do it is to clear your own pain. So what's happening is when we're feeling their pain, it's being attracted to us because we have something magnetic in us that's a trauma and a pain point that it's sticking to.
How
when
did you
your
find?
pain is clear, it doesn't stick to you.
So how did you realize that you had that attraction to pain? And then what did you do to identify what that pain was and then stop the cycle?
Yes. I have been working with a very good friend of mine, Becca Winnica, who is a specialized kinesiologist. She uses muscle testing. I don't know if familiar with that.
I've had a little bit of experience with that. A friend of mine who does human design also did a little bit of that with me as well. Fascinating study as well.
And so it's basically working with your etheric body by asking your body. So, we're not connected, unfortunately, in this world, we're not connected to the parts of, the unconscious, the subconscious parts of our body consciously, but it's still affecting our life because that is what's creating our life. So the body knows, and the body can go either weak or strong with muscle testing. And so she became just an expert at really clearing so many things with the modality she worked with. So I worked with her I still do it every month for 5 years, going in, asking my body, like when I'm experiencing an issue and I'll go, this is what I want to work on. And then, or I can just do body priority, which is what's my body want to work on? And we have been clearing layer after layer after layer of stuck emotions from this life, other lives, from our ancestors. There's so much. So that's how I did it, by just really getting clarity of what am I holding on to. And so I think all these energy healing modalities, EMDR, tapping, there's so many somatic ways to do it as well, to really, so I'm a big believer in energy healing. The other is really taking the pause, like in the moment when you're reacting, like, oh, I'm going to fix it right now. Like she dumped this on me and now I've got to just fix it, or I'm angry about it. And you just take a pause and just ask yourself, why am I overreacting here? And then just allow, and this is part of the gene keys, which is contemplation, which is really pausing, allowing it in, inquiring what's going on, and then just embracing the shadow that's there, and then just in allowing it to work out by seeing. It's like we have all these unconscious, subconscious parts that come up and take over our consciousness, like these wounded child parts that come in that are trying to be seen. And we, unfortunately in our world, we suppress those. And so when they suppress, they just keep staying there. So the idea is to really listen to what's coming up and why, and just allowing it to feel it in your body and let it go. So those are the ways that I've been, trying to understand what's going on here for me. I mean, and just doing a lot of like the astrology and understanding your imprint and your gene keys really helps see what's embedded in there as well.
So when I got a question about like when you're in the heat of something, what are some techniques that you do to slow yourself down, to not be reactive, but
Right.
instead be present in something that is starting to blow up in front of you? Because we all have those moments. Somebody says something, catches us off guard, or kids come in upset, or you get that nasty phone call. What do you do?
I mean, I just take a deep breath. So if I can remember, sometimes I don't, and I just spew, and it's like, but pretty soon I'll remember and I'll take a breath. Or one of the things that just popped in is just tapping, bringing yourself back to your body, bringing it back to this present moment, and knowing that a lot of it is just in the mind and you're just overreacting, but you're safe in this moment, and try to get grounded into reality in the moment by just, tapping or doing something to just bring yourself back. And if you have time, obviously getting outside and grounding into the earth, because nature really helps bring you back to yourself.
Yeah, I've heard of that as well, just taking off your shoes and standing on the grass.
Yes, do
It's
that.
amazing how many small things we take for granted or we overlook that can help us heal on the inside and, face those deep parts of our soul that we don't want to take a look at and we don't really want to deal with. And we say, okay, we'll just deal with that thing tomorrow. What's your experience with actually confronting those dark parts and then releasing them? How'd that work for you? How do you feel in those moments? And talk a little bit how somebody can, if they're feeling that they've got that inside them but want to let it go, what can they do?
Yeah, and I think the problem is your mind's like, oh, it's going to be terrible, I don't want to feel it. But just it usually passes within like 30 seconds to a minute. So I mean, I've had like constriction and pain in my heart and fear, and then I'm just like, I'm just going to sit with this, and I breathe through it, and I just say, I'm going to feel you, I'm going to feel it, and allow it, and the tears will come. Allow yourself to cry, allow yourself to wail, whatever it is, that emotion that comes out, because tears release memory, tears release the karma. So cry, if you can, and sometimes like if you're angry, just go pound on a pillow or whatever. I regulate myself by toning and chanting and humming and just talking to myself, because your voice is a soother of you as well.
That's the first time I've heard that. Your voice is a soother of you, that you could speak things
a resonant tone
out loud. And how there's other people. It's interesting now I think about it, there's other people in my life whose voices I enjoy listening to because they are soothing. You mentioned about crying. I heard it said once that crying is a release of your argument with God. I absolutely love that. It just, when I heard that, it just defined how I viewed crying. Because we were kind of conditioned, or at least I grew up in an environment where I was conditioned to like, you don't cry, that shows weakness. You don't cry at all. But when I heard that, I was like, wow, yeah, let out that good cry, but it's releasing your argument with God, that there's something inside your soul that needs to get out. So I'm so glad you said that. I mentioned in the beginning that we were going to talk about stepping out of our ego. So I really want to talk about that. I want to make sure we get to that. Start with your definition of ego and then go into what it means to step out of one's ego.
Yeah. Well, I've heard this great saying that ego stands for edging God out. I don't know if you've heard that.
No, I have not. That's great.
So the way I look at the ego is it's like really in the first three dimensions, into like the science, which is there's many dimensions to this reality. So the 3D reality is the first, second, and the third dimension. And in those dimensions, we have a personality that we've taken on. When people just ask you to describe yourself, like before, I'm like, well, I'm an artist and a mother and a wife and a vegetarian or whatever it could be, right? Those are descriptors. Those are more ego personality. It's the ego is really what you have identified with. The divine self, I think of, is your soul essence. And you can think of it as a snowflake, that we are all just beautiful, unique configurations of energy filled with light. You think of the snowflake and just all the light that's coming through it and the unique pattern. And then when we are born into this world, it immediately gets covered up with what you can think of as sticky notes. So the sticky notes can be your ancestral trauma that I believe in epigenetics, which is you are carrying the trauma, and the emotional trauma of your ancestors as well. So that you can look up epigenetics, and so it's like the Holocaust. Like if you don't even know your grandparents were in the Holocaust, you're still carrying that because of the emotional weight that's still in your DNA, in your genes, how they're expressing. Yeah. So you're putting these sticky notes on, like, trauma and I'm not good enough, or, what other, the first 7 years of life, your brain is in like a theta recording state. So it's helping you figure out how do I deal, how can I survive in this life? So you're picking up all the things about your family, your parents, all the cues, and then you're creating a way to be in this life so you survive. So those are all those sticky notes that are capped on top of this unique essence of the soul that you came in to be. And so the ego is really just taking off the sticky notes of all the shoulds and all the expectations of others and what society thinks you should be, what your ancestors think you should be, or what you brought in with you in your DNA, and removing all those to become who you are at your essence, which in the Gene Keys is your purpose. So my purpose is, guidance to virtue. And that's the essence that I'm supposed to bring in, guidance, but that all got covered up with, you got to be a really good mom, and you got to spend all of your time doing all the mom related things. And you don't have a chance to be who you are. And that's why we're really trying to step out of, when you identify with like a job or, even like if you say, oh, I'm a hippie or whatever, whatever package that comes with the collective conscious of what they think of as a hippie, you buy into. So it's not really who you are, but you like saying, well, that's me. And you become that. That's part of the ego program. Does that explain it a little bit?
Yeah, it does. So you're stepping into something that may not be your authentic self if you're not careful. So it's easy enough to fall into, if somebody asks you, what do you do? Well, I'm a mom, or I'm a teacher, or I'm a podcaster. You fall into that role, but finding what your true purpose is a whole other it's a whole other dimension. And I could see the phrase stepping out of your ego is stepping out of the package or the persona that you've put yourself into, and then identifying what you are authentically really supposed to do on this earth. I can relate a little bit to that, and I'm sure there's a lot of moms out there in particular where that's what you did. You raised your kids, and if you had a career, you did that too. Kudos to the moms that raised kids and had careers. That was not something I could have personally done. And so I took on that mom role as well. And then when the kids are older, it's like, oh, wait a minute, what do I do now? So stepping out of the ego makes sense. Yes. It really does. How does that tie in. So you have I want to talk about your free ebook. It's
Mhm.
called The Matrix Resurrections Unraveled. And it does offer a unique perspective on our reality without giving too much away. What's one key
Mhm.
insight from the book that you believe could significantly shift someone's perception of the world around them?
Well, yeah, I love the Matrix movies. I was intrigued by them, but specifically this last one, which I think it's really a mirror of our reality
Mm.
in a way. So it's more of a documentary than you think. So first of all, it is real. And then when you think about, like, for example, if anybody who's seen it, like you start stepping out and then you'll see like the Matrix pulling you back in. One of
Mm.
the scenes in that movie is like the psychiatrist's office, and he pulls him back in through the mirror, or through the veil, and basically it's like, just tried to commit suicide. You've had a psychotic break, and you're back here now.
Mm.
And it's really showing you the difference between the ego and the false matrix, and people who are trying to step out and to be their sovereign self. And in this movie also, so it talks about how we really are trapped, and then what keeps us trapped. So some of the things that keeps us trapped are pharmaceutical medications. That's like, taking the blue pill. You want to go back to sleep, take the blue pill, and it's just how you have to take a leap of faith. And then the interaction with Trinity and Neo, when they touch hands, it shows that the body remembers. And so body consciousness, listening to your body, and it tells you what's truth. Your mind may be lost in the matrix, but if you truly listen to your body, you know what's really real. And then I love the ending of that movie. When they finally break out, so they're free of the matrix and all the tricks that are being played here. And then the psychiatrist says, "Well, yeah, you guys go do your thing, paint rainbows on the sky if you want, but there's a whole lot of people who want my world." Like, basically the sheep, they want to be told what to do, and they want to be controlled. So it really says, how we can be lulled to sleep, but we're really giving away so much of our uniqueness and our power if we just follow the mainstream and the authority and the pillars out there that are trying to keep us more into conformity than anything.
Interesting. You mentioned about listening to your body
Mm-hmm.
and that it speaks to us. Talk a little bit about what that looks like practically in listening to your
Mm-hmm.
body. What are we listening for? What does it say? What do we do when we hear?
Yeah. Well, it's different for everybody. So
Sure.
one of my gifts is clear cognizance and clear sentience, and it's my body feels it. So the biggest thing for me is when I hear like something that's truth, I get chills.
Mm.
So like when somebody will say something, I'll just get chills all over, and I'll know to me that that's my sign for truth. Other people, and a lot of people have that.
Hmm.
Sometimes me personally, when I yawn, I know that's clearing energy. So it might be some distortion, some issue with me. I'd be watching a sci-fi movie and I'm yawning, yawning, yawning. I think that for me, that clears distortions. So yawning is like a thing. My kinesiologist, when she's working on people, she will yawn. And when she yawns, she'll know that she's released the pattern.
Wow. How did you know? Like, how did you know that's what yawning? I
She
always
just
thought
started
yawning
doing it,
was
and
just
I started doing it as well.
wow. Because
It's not for, I mean, everybody's,
I just thought yawning was just like I'm tired or I need more oxygen in my body.
and
But
it could be that as well.
yeah.
And each person has different signals for their
How,
body.
how
And then
does
when you're in
how do we find those?
pain,
How do we find the connection between what the signal is and what its meaning means?
well, and they're like Louise Hay has a book about a lot of these things. So I would
Gotcha.
recommend that. But, there's based on your chakras, different parts of your body are speaking to different things. So like if you have ankle problems, knee problems, that's usually grounding. It's your root chakra. Her book, it's not 100%, but it's a really good way to start thinking of those signs in your body differently. For me, I have a lot of neck and shoulder pain, and it's very telling because my journey in this life is taking the weight of others. I'm taking responsibility for humanity. It's like the atlas, the ball on the back, and I'm just hunched over and closing my heart chakra down. When you're doing this, you're protecting, you're closing your heart down, and then so there's so many different signs. So that neck and shoulder pain is like, I release taking on other people's journeys. I release not being able to help everybody here. And that's what part of my path has been. But it's all my stress has been way up here. And that's what that's telling me.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes when you clear your throat, it like something's trying to come in, or you're feeling like your voice is shut down. So there's all sorts of symbols, out there to give you hints about what's happening.
Oh, interesting. Wow. I didn't realize that the body could say so much. And it circles back to what you started out with, listening for the quiet whisper, listening for that very quiet voice that's inside the body. And by the time it's not so quiet is when it's really in a critical stage at that point.
Yeah. And that's where people get divorced or lose their jobs or get an injury because they're not being woken up by those whispers that are coming in from their higher self.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. How different the trajectory of lives might be by quieting ourselves and listening to that still small whisper.
Having a meditation practice or just any sort of connection to self. And really, like what I started doing is just, made note to the universe that I want the Holy Spirit or my highest self to take the lead, and I'd like my ego to be on the back burner. So I give authority to my higher self, and I try to say something like that every day.
Oh, wow. What are some practices that you do to help yourself stay grounded and stay in connection with your authentic self?
Yeah. So I do like a mantra in the morning when I wake up. I used to be Holy Spirit, guide my thoughts, words, and actions. Now I'm more like, I commit to serve my highest power fully, completely, and totally. I am unity. Saying that every day. And then I get on my computer and I journal. And a lot of times I'm pretty good at remembering dreams, and I'm pretty good at interpreting them now. So it's fascinating what's coming in. And I'm like, and I write them down. I'm like, oh, that means, I had a dream about a cat. So I'm like, what do cats symbolize? I go onto like a website to figure that out. Oh, feminine spirituality. And I found this cat and I was able to rescue it. And I had this whole thing and it had a pink collar, and then the colors have meaning. You can look up on these websites, the different colors. And then it was a good dream. This happened like 3 days ago. And then I found the cat, which is reclaiming my feminine power and my spirituality. And I was able to take the cat and drive away in a light blue car. So the light blue, all of this is telling you. It's like
it's amazing just connecting all those dots. But I think it really just stems from an awareness and being present in the moment in what's around you. And then just getting curious and asking those questions about why is this happening? What is this thing? What's the symbol? What does it mean for me? Well, how can I use it to its highest, best use in my life? Wow.
I wrote a blog about this, but one thing happened to me 2 years ago. I live on a mountain. There's a property association, and then I had the car on, and I shut the door. I was just going to run in and get my packages. Turns out with the car on, it locked. I had my phone, my keys, everything in there. And I'm in there panicked. And like, I can't communicate with anybody. I'm trying to interrupt somebody who's in a meeting. I'm like, then I'm like, oh my gosh, I just got to sit here. I know it'll be okay. And I took some breaths. Like I say, what do you do when you're in that turmoil? I'm like, breathe, it's going to be okay. And then somebody came along and I said, can you please help me? Can you drive me up to my house? And I got to get my extra set of keys, and, I'm stranded. So I was able to handle that situation by calming myself and aligning myself. But it was very clear to me that it was dealing with my separation. Everybody in the Gene Keys, you can look at your profile and you know what your core wound is. Mine is separation. So it was playing out in the physical. I was separated from my car,
Hmm.
which means to me, my drive, my vehicle in life, I am separate. My consciousness is separate from my way to go in life. My keys,
Wow.
keys to the world, my phone, my connection to myself, to others, the divine, all locked away, separate from me. What is going on in my subconscious that I caused this to happen? Because we're
Wow.
creating our reality. We're
Yeah, yeah.
vectors.
It's amazing when you start thinking about it, what your subconscious really does and makes conscious. Like you think about something and you're like, oh, I don't want that thing to happen. And then that thing goes and happens. Or you lose something, or you're thinking, oh, I don't want to lose that something, and you lose it anyway. So it's a sober reminder that number one, our words matter, and number two, our thoughts matter just as much as our words.
Absolutely.
So to take captive those thoughts and make them obedient to what you want, what you needed obedient to. Now there is a verse in the Bible that says, take captive your thoughts and make them obedient to Christ. So if you're a Christian, that makes sense to you. But if you're not, it still applies, as you would take captive your thoughts and make it obedient to your spirit or whatever it is inside of you, to be very careful so that you're not creating that alternate reality that you don't
Absolutely.
want to create,
And they
so
must be in harmony. I think it was a Buddhist saying that, you make your thoughts, words, and actions in harmony. So if you're
mm,
lying, like if you feel one way and you say something else, you bring chaos in your world because they're
mm.
not in harmony. They're not in alignment. So they're just bringing in static. And you're like, what are you saying? And you're saying something different than you feel. So we don't know. The universe doesn't know what to bring to you. They just bring in chaos.
Oh, wow. So when your words don't match your thought, I
Yeah.
just
Make
want to
sure
say
your
that again.
words,
Make sure
thoughts, and actions are in harmony.
your words, thoughts, and actions are in harmony. And when your words don't match your thoughts, it brings chaos into your world.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, boy, there's something for some of us to sit with. Because sometimes that happens, doesn't it? If you think about it, you're thinking one thing, but you say something else because either you don't want to hurt that person's feelings, you don't want to tell the truth, you don't want to expose what's going on in your own mind. But really, what you're doing is you're creating chaos.
That's how I see it.
Wow. Fascinating. I
Because you
think,
want your conscious, all your body energy, your heart
yeah,
energy, all moving toward what you want to create in life. When
right.
you're worried about, I'm so worried about having a car accident, and you think about it, you're actually creating that, because that's where
Right.
your energy is going, is saying car accident. It's like, no,
Yeah,
no, no,
right.
I
No,
don't
yeah,
want
yeah.
that.
You don't want that. Yeah. I actually, when stuff like that comes in my mind, I'm like, I renounce that thought. That is not the thought and then I consciously, renounce that. Worry is a very interesting thing. I heard David Guiam talk about worry and how what you do is when you worry about someone, you think you love them. Therefore, you think worrying about them is the natural thing to do. But what he was talking about was that worry actually removes the protective covering around that person that you're worrying about, and it weakens their aura.
Yeah.
Boy, when I heard that, I was just blown away, because I used to think, I mean, this really altered how I thought. I used to think that worrying about somebody was actually something you're supposed to do. Well, I'm worried about you because I love you, blah, blah, blah. But when I stepped back from that thought, like we were talking about earlier, how stepping out of the ego, you're stepping out of what's actually happening around you and looking at it from maybe a back here perspective, like just a floating above it perspective. When I did that exercise, and I purposely said to myself, well, I'm worried about this person, I could feel the low level frequency. I could feel the negative, the low, like it's not positive. It doesn't feel right kind of energy. When I released the worry and I said, okay, I'm not going to worry about that person anymore. Instead, I send them my strength, my love, and my power to overcome the thing that I'm concerned with. When I
Mhm.
do that, when you send somebody your love, your strength, your power, or you send them good vibrations, that's positive. It will resonate at a higher level. And if you quiet yourself enough, even if somebody's listening and they're like, this stuff is like woo, woo woo, I don't really believe in that. If you quiet yourself enough and you think about it, really, that's you can feel positive and negative.
Oh,
And if and even to go one step further, think about the people you enjoy being around are generally very positive,
mhm.
uplifting people. The people you don't enjoy being around are the ones that are like, oh, like Debbie Downer, or they're always negative, or they always have
Yeah,
something to complain about, and they suck the energy
they do.
out of the room. Yeah, fascinating. Well, Rebecca, as we start to wind down our time together, I love to ask my guests the following
Mhm.
3 questions.
Sure.
So we'll start with the first one. Please share a book or resource that's had a significant impact on you.
I've already mentioned two,
Oh, yes.
biology belief and power versus force. I'd like to add in their Journey of Souls and Conversation with God trilogy.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Neil Donald Walsh.
Oh, yeah. I have not read that one. I'm a big Michael Singer fan. I
Yeah,
love his stuff too.
yeah, he's great.
um, I enjoy the next question a lot, and you can take this wherever you want it to go. What is one question or topic you wish I would have asked about, and how would you have answered that question or expanded on the topic?
Hmm. Well, what I've been saying is the thing that doesn't really come up a lot in these conversations is understanding the balance. How important on your spiritual journey is the balancing the being and the doing. And we talked
Mm,
a little bit about that, but this masculine energy, that we're trained to go out into the world and go manifest, go get what you want has to be in complete balance, really, with the feminine, the magnetic energy, the dreaming it in, the allowing the divine and the universe to step in, your guides to help without always just doing, but just sitting in meditation and creating it into your aura and your world. So I just want to really say that's been a huge thing for me is to because I was always doing, doing, doing. So just really being aware of how much you're doing and how much you're being and
mm.
enjoying and just listening versus talking and all the different things between the masculine and feminine balance. So yes.
All good reminders in there as
Mhm.
well. So, as we close, what is one small step that someone can do today that's going to help them change their tomorrow?
Oh goodness. Um, I would, most people, I'll have to say two. One is if you're brand new to it and you've never meditated, just get on Insight Timer and just start doing guided meditations, whatever it is. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, start there and do guided meditations and start the process. The other thing, which if journaling, I think is super important. Some people don't want to do it. There's this little cheat that I bought my children and it really changed their lives. It's
Mm,
called the 5 minute journal, and it's a gratitude journal, and it's just filling it in the morning. You kind of, what did what happened today? What are you grateful for? And then you're just starting the energy with that positivity and reflecting. And at the end of the day, you say, what happened great? What would I have changed? What am I grateful for? And you just close the day, and it's just filling in the blanks, and it doesn't take a lot of effort. But if somebody who's just starting on the path or a teenager, is a perfect gift to try to help them start getting a hold of their thoughts and their consciousness. So those are the two things I'd
oh,
say.
good. I'm glad you suggested the journal one. I actually had somebody come to mind while you were speaking. So thank
Perfect.
you for saying that. So, Rebecca, how can people find you and reach out to you?
The best way is rebeccaparis.org, or sorry, rebeccaparis.com. Or, you'll probably have it in the show notes, but it's a website, and I do one-on-one coaching. I have access to my course, Awakening to the Real You. So if you're on this journey and you want an online course that goes at your own pace, it really helps with understanding the holographic reality, your body, figuring out if you're walking in the ego or the divine self or the false matrix or the organic matrix, and really solid tips for ascension and how to embody the divine within yourself
Mm,
to become your authentic self. So that's all on my website, as well as getting your free Gene Keys profile. Go on to Gene Keys, and it's all on my website to be able to click on that. And if you want to reach out to me for any guided sessions to help you decipher your hologenetic profile. And the other thing is, just Raising the Vibe, I mentioned, is just out there as a resource for people to really, learn about all these tools, find a whole list of books that may resonate with them under all the resource section of raisingthevibe.org. So those are the two main places.
Oh, perfect. Well, Rebecca, thank you so much for the gift of your time. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I definitely learned a lot. I even took a lot of notes here.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I value your time with me, and I seek to make every moment count. In order to make lasting change in your life, listening is usually not enough. So I want to ask you, what practical steps are you going to put into action today as a result of listening to this podcast? Remember, any step, any action, no matter how small, starts your journey to a big win. And if you're not sure where to get started, reach out to me and let's have a conversation. Until next time, love yourself, then love others. Peace.